Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call to order the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency's, the Regional Planning Governing Board meeting for Thursday, October 14th. Call it to order. We'll start with a roll call.
All right, everyone hear me okay? Naomi Dewar,
Here.
Ed Lawson, Alexis Hill, I don't think she's joined just yet. Bonnie Weber, absent. Devin Reese,
Here.
Diane Vanderwell,
Here.
Donald Abbott,
Here.
Jean Herman,
Here.
Jenny Breckus,
I'm here.
Vaughn Hartung,
Here.
and non-voting member Beth Smith.
Okay, I believe we have a quorum.
All right. I
And
believe
Ms.
we have a
Weber has
quorum.
informed me that she is on the way, so she'll be here shortly.
Perfect.
Okay? Do we have Dr. Smith also?
I am here.
Yes, we do.
Oh, he's right there.
Hello.
I knew that.
I
didn't
usually don't
hear
call on Director Smith, but I can if you prefer that.
Dr. Director.
Dr. Smith, Dr. Director.
Mr. Whatever, it's right. He happens to own or be in possession of a very rare 11-string guild. Anyways, I digress. Okay. All right, I wouldn't hold up for the arts and crafts. Before we get started, I would like to welcome our new member from the Washington County School District. The Board of Trustees has appointed Beth Smith. Thank you so much for being here today. And would you lead us, Ms. Smith, in the pledge to the flag?
That would be my pleasure. And begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to item number 3, approval of the agenda. Do we need to make any changes, or can we move forward as it is been posted?
We're ready to move forward.
So moved. Herman.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Herman, second by Mr. Reese. Is there any public comment on this item?
There is none, but I do have a question about a phone number. Maybe Alexis Hill. Does anyone know if her number ends in 017?
Give me just a second.
No worries.
It does.
It does.
Well
All
done.
right. She is here. I will.
Faster fingers. Okay, bring her
Okay.
in and please let the record reflect. Ms. Hill, can you hear us?
I believe she is muted.
Yes.
There we go.
Perfect. Okay, welcome. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the agenda. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Approval of the minutes for August 12th, 2021. Are there any emendations to those minutes? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. So moved. Motion by Mr. Reese. Do I have a second? Check your pulses.
Second.
Second. Herman.
All right. First one I heard was Mr. Abbott. I have a motion by Mr. Reese, second by Mr. Abbott. Is there any public comment on this item, Mr. Clerk?
There is none.
Okay, we'll close that. We'll bring it back to the board. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That takes us to item number 5, public comment. Do we have anyone signed in?
I have none virtual or in person.
Is there anyone wishing to make public comment at this time in the chambers? Seeing none, I will close public comment. That takes us to business of the day. Item 6A, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. It'd be my great pleasure to read a resolution of appreciation into the record for previous Chair Naomi Dewar. So this is Regional Planning Item 6A, RPG Resolution 21-08, Resolution of Appreciation for the service of Naomi Dewar as Chair of the RPGB from 2020 to 2021. Whereas Naomi Dewar served as the Chair of the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Governing Board from August 2020 through August 2021 and provided exemplary regional leadership during the unprecedented COVID-19 health crisis. And whereas Naomi Dewar imparted thoughtful and focused influence to the Regional Planning Governing Board, the Regional Planning Commission, and the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency during this time. And whereas Naomi Dewar, during her tenure as chair, sought to engage the board members collaboratively on important regional issues, including implementation of the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. And whereas Naomi Dewar engaged and guided detailed discussions of the overall direction of TMRPA and supported TMRPA staff throughout her tenure as chair. And whereas Naomi Dewar sought to provide an efficient yet inclusive environment for all voices to be heard during meetings. And whereas Naomi Dewar artfully navigated the necessity of running virtual board meetings during the COVID pandemic. And whereas Naomi Dewar was instrumental in the intervention and successful implementation of the COVID risk meter to provide Truckee Meadows residents with accurate and up-to-date information about the risk of COVID-19 in our community. And whereas Naomi Dewar always worked with an optimistic spirit and heartfelt concern for the best interests of the residents of the Truckee Meadows. And whereas Naomi Dewar consistently and effectively exercised her responsibilities as a member of the RPGB efficiently, fairly, and with strong leadership, clear direction, respect for staff, and a commitment to the benefits of regional planning. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Regional Planning Governing Board does hereby extend its sincere appreciation to Naomi Dewar for serving as the chair of the Regional Planning Governing Board and for her innumerable hours of public service on behalf of the citizens of the Truckee Meadows.
Thank you. I truly had skipped over that when I reviewed the agenda until you announced it. Thank you so much. It was a real privilege and honor to help lead this group. And when I say help, it is simply that. This is an incredibly collaborative group, which has been marked by team effort on all fronts, whether it's the staff or the board. So that part was real easy. You actually brought me a little bit. I have a few tears here in my eyes, Jeremy. If that was your goal, you succeeded. But thank you very much, and I look forward to continue serving. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your service, Ms. Dewar. Wonderful job.
Thank you.
Any other comments by any other members? Okay, seeing none. You realize that this means you buy cocktails now this evening.
Cocktails sound fun. How soon can we make that happen, Mr. Chair?
Motion, I already have a motion to adjourn. Okay, well, here we go. Sorry, sooner than you think. Okay, Mr. Clerk, would you please let the record reflect that Ms. Weber has arrived? Okay, and that takes us now to item 6B, the public hearing. Mr. Manager, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. Item 6B is a public hearing item. Regional Plan Amendment RPA 21-004, Military Road Power Line Relocation. Possible adoption of RPGB Resolution 21-09 regarding a mapping amendment to Map 3 of the 2019 Regional Plan to add a regional utility corridor to accommodate the relocation of a portion of an existing 120 kilovolt electric transmission line relocation. The plus or minus 1.73 acre site is located on the southwest corner of the Lemon Drive and Military Road intersection. For this item, we have Regional Planner Shawnee Sousa.
Sousa, welcome.
Give me just a moment. I need just a moment. Sorry, guys. I apologize.
Is that mic on? Is it? Okay. Yeah, please.
Oh, I found it. Oh, goodness. Sorry, everyone. We're almost there. Can I view it from Okay, thanks for your patience. Shawnee Sousa, Team RPA for the record. I'll be presenting the Regional Plan Amendment for the Military Power Line relocation. So this is an amendment to the regional plan to establish a regional utility corridor to accommodate the relocation of a portion of an existing 120 kilovolt electric transmission line. Staff and RPC recommend approval of the proposed amendment and that it conforms with the 2019 regional plan. The regional form map is to your right, and as you can see, the site is on the southwest corner of Lemon Drive and Military Road. In August, the Reno City Council sponsored this amendment, and in September, the RPC recommended the RPGB adopt the proposed mapping amendment and determine that the associated PRS also conformed. Materials provided by the City of Reno indicate that the project will optimize the development potential of the site. This area is within Regional Land Designation Tier 2 and has a Master Plan Land Use Designation Suburban Mixed Use. here is an aerial view of the site to the right for a little more context. The Military Road Powerline relocation is a regional plan amendment because policy PF11 requires that all regional utility corridors and sites be mapped, and that a regional plan amendment be required for the establishment of new corridors and sites. Listed on the screen, you can see policy RC10 of the 2019 regional plan. This identifies the 7 criteria that the RPC and the RPGB must consider when evaluating a regional plan amendment. We found no conformance issues and also found that it conforms with the 2019 regional plan. As noted, staff and RPC recommend approval of the proposal as well as the adoption of Resolution 2109. The motion is listed on the screen or on page 13 of your packet. Reno staff as well as Team RPA is available for any questions.
Okay, thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Yeah,
Are there any
Thank you.
questions for staff? Ms. Breckus?
sure.
It's always I mean, we saw this, and I read the Planning Commission report even before, but it's always a concern when you move power lines closer to existing residents or corridors. I didn't remember that map showing, you know, these graded out, and a couple months ago, I looked at some maps that Reno was producing and thought, boy, when did they last fly, you know? And it used to be that everyone flies and gets the same base map. Do you think that's still the case, Dr. Smith? Do you think that you have a newer base map than what other jurisdictions are using? Or am I wrong to presume that everyone flew the same time, everyone updated their aerials at the same time?
Thank you for that great question. Jeremy Smith for the record. And my understanding is that the base map committee that is basically comprised of the 3 jurisdictions and other members like NV Energy is responsible for creating those flyovers. I believe the most recent was from 2019, maybe it's 2020, but we have acquired that information. The RTC has it. Anyone that participates with the base map committee can get access to that information, and it should also be available online on the Washoe County Quick Maps website.
Okay.
So we are all able to access that updated information.
Yeah, okay. I wonder, because I was looking to see in your record if you loaded up the Reno stuff to see if they were using an older map, but okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion, either for or against this.
Oh, Chair Hartung, I
Yes.
believe we have to ask for public comment first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, not to worry. There is none, just FYI.
Either way, we can entertain a motion and then ask for public comment, but thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Good, okay. Check your pulses.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Ms. Herman, second by Mr. Reese. Is there any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, that takes us to item 6C. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 6C is discussion and possible action regarding projects of regional significance, or PRS, including the origin of PRS thresholds and formation of a subcommittee of the RPGB to address a comprehensive review of the PRS guidelines. Today, we have a short presentation from Regional Planner Chris Tolley, which will be followed by more information from Legal Counsel Jessica Prunty. Thank you.
Mr. Tolley, welcome.
Welcome, thank you. Give me just a second while I share the presentation screen. Everything's in the way of it. There we go. All right. Give it another second. Got it. Good afternoon, Regional Planning Governing Board members, Chris Tolley, Team RPA, and thanks for the opportunity to present on this item, which presents staff's research regarding the origins of the PRS thresholds and recommended action regarding the formation of a PRS review subcommittee. So as a reminder for the members of the public, members of the RPGB and the public who might be watching this presentation, at the August 12th, 2021 RPG meeting, staff presented something of a precursor to this item, which covered the history of PRS, which was essentially from 91 to present, history of the PRS guidelines as adopted by the RPC, background of rehearing of approved PRSs, and then today, Jessica Prunty, legal counsel, will introduce her findings regarding the origins of the PRS thresholds, which are contained in the memo that was provided to the RPGB and also located on TMRPA's website. And staff's recommendation for this item is for the RPGB to form a PRS review subcommittee, which would be comprised of one board member from each jurisdiction, together with alternates. And that is in this motion, which is also on page 28 of the packet. And now I'll turn it over to Jessica.
Ms. Prunty, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jessica Prunty for the record. You all have a memo that I provided yesterday morning, which outlines my findings of the legislative history research regarding the definitions of projects of regional significance. It's pretty straightforward. There really wasn't a lot of discussion regarding the definition. The enacting legislation in 1989, they essentially, there's a few snippets in the minutes that indicate that the definition was lifted out of an interlocal agreement that was pre-existing. And that was all that there was. In 1991, there was another comment that the definition was arrived at by political consensus of the three jurisdictions, again referring back to that interlocal. So I searched our archives of legal counsel. I know that Dr. Smith and his staff also researched TMRPA's legal archives, and we have not located this interlocal agreement. And even I think if we found the interlocal agreement, we're not going to be able to understand without reviewing minutes of the various local jurisdictions' adoption of that agreement, of what the intention was or where those numbers came from. But there wasn't a lot to find, and there was a lot of legislative history to go through. So that's what we did uncover. And most of the concerns articulated at the time in regards to projects of regional significance are set forth in my memo, which was essentially they wanted to make sure that anything that had already been approved at the local level was grandfathered in and wouldn't be subject to regional conformance review. And the only comments were regarding large-scale developments. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay, so just real quickly, I just some clarification for me. So under your 1991 amendment, parent D, subset 1, employment, subset 2, housing, hotel accommodations, blah, 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 sewage, et cetera. Can this board decide that instead of 938, that we can make it 925? Or do those things, are they hard numbers that reside in statute?
Those are hard numbers that reside in statute.
Okay.
And I wouldn't recommend moving forward with an adoption of a guideline that would have contrary criteria to those in the statute.
Okay. So we can neither make them more stringent or less stringent.
I don't think you can enact any different numbers as to
Okay.
these numbers than that exists in statute. You could adopt guidelines that talk about various subject matters.
Okay.
For example,
Good.
there's a guideline regarding the increase in students of 325.
Right.
So you can go add to the statutes. You
Okay.
just can't do anything that would conflict with the statute.
Understood. Okay. I wanted to make sure that I understood the parameters.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Questions for staff? Yes, Ms. Dewar.
Yeah, just a follow-up question, Ms. Prunty. You just used an example. I thought I understood to the last example when you talked about the students. Were you just saying that is the number for students, or we have flexibility on that one?
So the student population number is not in statute.
Oh.
It is solely a creature of the guidelines. So that number could change.
Okay.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good to know.
Anything that's in the guidelines can change.
Anything that's in our guidelines? Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Questions? Any other questions for staff? Okay. Ms. Breckus.
Did you check the old regional planning agency files?
I believe staff did.
You have those? Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Jeremy Smith, for the record, we did. We went through everything we had in the office exhaustively. There is a storage facility, which we recently downsized into. So I think as we continue the conversation, we'll see if we can dig up that interlocal. We're not giving up, but we haven't found it yet.
Yeah, I think it was probably in that context, maybe. So what is the recommendation that the subcommittee work on?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think, as I understand it, the recommendation is that we uncovered in our previous item at the last meeting that through the history of the Regional Planning Agency and the PRS guidelines, there have been periodic reviews and changes to those guidelines. And I think in the spirit of keeping, up with changes that are happening in our community and societally, we want to look again and just make sure that we're not missing something or that we're not overreaching in terms of the guidelines. And this committee would be the guiding force to help kick that off. Ultimately, we'll need to take this whole item back down to the Regional Planning Commission because it's really their resolution that sets those guidelines. So we're looking for a leadership subcommittee to help us get started and give us clear direction on what we're trying to achieve. And then we'll evolve to take it to the RPC for the further deliberation. And as I mentioned, I think in the last staff report we did, we're going to make sure that both bodies agree with any changes before we try to really take it for final adoption.
Okay, so hold on just a second. You mentioned a leadership subcommittee. I believe we've already established that subcommittee originally, did we not? It was.
We did.
It was Ms. Dewar, it was Mr. Lawson, and it was myself, and then it was the existing member who happened to be Katie Simon
Right.
Holland from the Washington County School District.
Yeah.
So that's the committee still exists, if I'm correct, either Mr. Azevedo or Ms. Prunty?
Chair Hartung, my understanding after review of the minutes of this board meeting that formed that committee is the committee was purposely formed to address the topic of planning around schools, and whether that be regional plan amendments, alteration of the PRS guidelines, or other methods.
Okay, so.
Well, Mr. Chair?
But you still didn't answer my question. Does that committee still exist?
Yes, it does.
It
That
does,
committee
okay.
is still in existence.
Right, it still is
had-
in existence. Okay, Ms. Dewar.
I believe
Well,
there's
I
one
mean,
meeting.
so I was just going to say there's no sunset on the committee.
No,
We might have to differently define if you wanted to change the focus of it, but I thought it was really, you said schools, but I was pretty active in forming the committee, and what I remember is that it was initiated actually by a power line, and we were talking about projects of regional significance in general. The power line happened to be near school, and it kind of led us to a conversation about the challenges of schools that are embedded, especially where they have regional transportation impacts, or local transportation impacts, and whether we at regional planning should review schools in addition to ones, this guideline was set, I think it's 350 or, I forget the exact number that's in the
325.
guidelines, but that we wanted to take a look at the number, decide whether that's a good number, whether we should amend the number, and then look, I think, more broadly at the concept. A lot of it looks like it's hard-baked into the legislature, so there are things for us to do. I think the committee was set up well with a good purpose. We only had 1 or 2 meetings, so we haven't not exhausted our lifespan there. So I don't know if you need a motion, but I think we already exist. If maybe
Right.
you want a motion to re-engage,
and so.
set a new meeting.
And I concur with that assessment. The only question that I have for legal is, until I will turn the floor over to Ms. Breckus, is do we exist in a broad enough fashion? Because I happen to agree lockstep with what Ms. Stewart said. I mean, we have issues like large box stores and et cetera that can drive huge amounts of traffic in areas, and those are and even though they're offset by RIF fees, it can still really upset some balances depending on where they reside. And so those kinds of things, I mean, I see the subcommittee as a committee that looks at impacts of all manner on the region, regional impacts, not just an impact in unincorporated or impact in Sparks or unincorporated or City of Reno. It's when it starts crossing jurisdictional lines that it potentially becomes a project of regional significance. That's my thought process. Okay,
Concur.
Ms. Breckus.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of, as Ms. Dewar said, a lot of the provisions are hard-baked in the legislature. And there have been times where, people pursue changes to the legislation. One, I think since most of us have been on this body, unilaterally by a jurisdiction, which is their right. But if the subcommittee is, going to think about changes to the legislation, that's stepping up and much broader, looking at this issue from a different perspective, which I don't think is, it's right in the time cycle. Is it right in the biggest burning issue for the 3 jurisdictions in our region? Arguable. But if they get into that territory, I think that it should come back to a pretty soon timeframe to this body. And I'll just give an example, because I like to give examples, is if they're starting to think we need to open up 278, which can, go anyway. I've always wanted this body to be the MPO, okay, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the distinction of this creation under federal law that the RTC serves as. I always thought it would be the better body. It comes with some funding. It'd be a larger body than the RTC Washoe. So if you start talking about 278 opening up, and we've tasked you to go down and talk narrowly, I think that you need to come back and we need to have that discussion here for other ideas to populate the conversation.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, if I may.
hold on just a second. Does anyone else want to speak that has not already spoken? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Stewart.
I think Ms. Breckus brings up a really good point, and I think that is how the committee always contemplated acting, was to just provide a kind of little bit more informal forum to vet some ideas. Anything, I think, that would come out of the committee will come back here, whether there was a recommendation for legislation or a change to our guidelines or no change. I think we still owe a report back to the body.
Absolutely, and so legal, give us some guidance here. So Dr. Smith mentioned that it has to go back down to the RPC, which is completely understandable. It's no different than our planning commissions. It's exactly the same. From there, what happens? Does it come up for our ratification? And then at that point, if there are legislative changes required, do we then move forward with our legislative subcommittee to say, this is a direction that we think we want to go? Am I making sense?
Yes, you are, Mr. Chair. Jessica Prunty for the record again. First, we recommend, as far as this committee, if you would like to, we recommend that you set the scope of what you want to do today. Second, as far as the role of the Regional Planning Commission, by statute, the authority to adopt guidelines regarding projects of regional significance lives with them.
Okay.
So the subcommittee that's formed, depending upon the scope that you determine today, will undertake whatever activities you want and come back to this body. And then if a determination is made that you want to have an alteration to the guidelines, then at that point in time, it could go down to the Regional
It
Planning
goes to the
Commission.
RPC, correct, right.
Yes.
And forgive me for not including that step, and that's exactly right. We don't get to just decide that it goes to the RPC and then back to us, that
Yes.
subcommittee. It
But
still has to come back to
yes.
this body for ratification to move back down to.
But the Regional Planning Commission would have nothing to do with your legislative agenda or any
Right.
other changes that you may want to work around
Right.
in this regard.
Okay, understood.
Did that
Okay,
answer your questions?
yes, no, thoroughly. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, one final thought. I really view that the committee was starting to get in full swing and COVID came.
Yes,
And I don't really think, it's just like there was a pause. I really don't think that we have to recharge the committee with a new charge, other than I don't recall, I thought it would be a natural outgrowth. If we ran into a roadblock with legislation, of course, we would bring that back. That's
course.
just, we're not going to anticipate every idea or thought that this subcommittee could come up with. So to me, it's really a no change, except to welcome Ms. Smith as a change from Ms. Simon, and continue on with our mission, kind of in a post-COVID pandemic emergency world into a COVID pandemic world.
okay. On that note,
Yes.
Ms. Prunty and Mr. Azevedo, give us some guidance. Ms. Smith, is she the de facto member because it was the Washoe County School District's asked to also resign on that seat, which I think is rightful and appropriate? Or can there be some type of an additional assignment?
Your statutes require that if you're forming a subcommittee, it has to be members of this board, which
Okay.
could include the Washington County School District liaison.
Okay,
And then if Ms. Smith is unable to attend any meetings, it's the past practice of this board to send proxies from their particular jurisdiction, from their elected leadership or the council's commissions. So Ms. Smith could always send a proxy from the Board of Trustees
Okay.
to go to the meetings. And then, of course, staff is welcome from all jurisdictions and the school district to go in and attend and participate as the subcommittee so chooses.
okay, good. But it has to be someone from the elected body. Okay. Good, okay. All right, any other questions? Ms. Smith, what would you like to do? Because the board is already, the committee, the subcommittee is already formed. Again, you are the de facto member, as Katie Simon Holland was the original member. What would you like to do? Give us some guidance. So it would be you, or so do we just appoint her, and then if she can't attend? Okay, okay, all right. So she can't just hand it off to another. She can't give it to, let's say, Dr. Taylor or somebody else. Okay, got it. Unless she's just unable to attend, then it would just be her proxy.
Exactly.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr.
an alternate.
Yes,
as it
an
were.
alternate.
Question, sorry, do they have to assign alternates? Or do they automatically, because I know some jurisdictions, you're automatically on a board, so as an example, NACO for Washoe County, all members automatically serve on NACO and can be alternates for anyone.
Mr. Chair, for the record, Norm Azevedo, I would recommend that they designate an alternate to keep it clean.
Okay.
With this body, that's been the practice at this level, at the RPC level. Each jurisdiction designates their replacement for that particular position.
Okay, good. All right, thank
Mr.
you so
Chair?
much, Ms. Stewart.
So as I recall at Reno, we designated the other 3 members
Right.
of the Reno Council to be the alternates
Right.
that are not here today.
Okay.
If you more specifically mean an alternate to this committee, subcommittee, are you saying we need to designate one of our members here?
No,
The scope of my response with regard to the school district,
yes,
this body, the city of Reno, for example, has alternates designated.
We do,
So if you don't show, your alternate could act in your stead at that point.
right,
We're trying to set up a similar process for the school district.
okay.
but
That's my
but we're only
recommendation.
referring to the subcommittee. Can anyone attend the subcommittee in Ms. Stewart's stead?
That's our question.
As long as they're either an active member of the body
Yeah.
or an alternate.
Okay,
Okay,
And one thing I'll say, just for the record, the subcommittee is going to do its work and come back with whatever it comes back with. Potential legislative changes, recommendations, but it can't take action that binds this body.
right,
right.
So they really just reload you with recommendations that the whole body will consider.
right.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, and again, I just want to make sure that we all understand exactly what's going on in the event that anything doesn't go to plan. Okay, so the subcommittee exists. If you would like to take that back to your board, to the Board of Trustees, and then assign an alternate or alternates. And then, do we have to have another agenda item approving those alternates, or are we good to go that they just assign them?
I think they get to pick their own.
Just want to make sure we're legal.
Mr. Chair, the past practice has been the local jurisdiction designate who the alternate is, and they
Yep.
put you on notice. So
Okay.
in this process, the school district would say it's alternate A and B or whomever would they pick, and they would put the director on notice who those alternates are.
The director.
No actions required here.
That's all I needed to know. Okay, I don't think we need any action today then, do we? Okay, legal is shaking its head no. Are there any other questions or comments for staff? Members on the phone, either tomato, Ms. Herman or Ms. Hill?
No questions or issues here.
Okay? Okay, all right, thank you so much. All right, we will close that item. Let me get to the right place on my agenda. That takes us to item 6D, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. We have item 6D is a public hearing item, Regional Plan Amendment RPA 21-006. Regional Plan Amendment, Annual Review and Update of the Regional Plan. possible adoption of RPGB Resolution 21-10 regarding the annual review and update of the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan conducted by the RPC pursuant to NRS 278.0272, including policy adjustments, mapping adjustments, and grammatical and mapping corrections. For this item, we have Regional Planner Chris Tolley.
Hello, once again. I'll share my screen again.
Thank you, Mr. Tolley.
Oh, it's shared. There we go. All right. Good afternoon once again, Regional Planning Governing Board members, Chris Tolley, Team RPA. Thank you for the opportunity to present regarding the annual regional plan updates. First, the 2019 regional plan was adopted by the RPGB on October 10th of 2019. Since the original adoption, staff has continued to identify policy adjustments, mapping adjustments, and other corrections to be fixed during each annual review of the regional plan as required by NRS. As most of you remember, staff brought updates forward for your consideration last year. Those were ultimately adopted by the RPGB at the October 2020 meeting. So the regional plan amendment case, RPA 21-006, presents the adjustments and corrections identified by staff over the last year for consideration by the Regional Planning Commission and Regional Planning Governing Board. The RPC did recommend that the RPGB adopt the proposed updates at their September 23rd meeting. And finally, the recommendation from the RPC and regional planning staff is that the amendments support the goals and policies of the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. The NRS subsection shown on the screen identifies that the regional plan should be reviewed annually for potential updates by the Regional Planning Commission. Updates to the 2019 regional plan, as noted by Director Smith, include policy and mapping adjustments, mapping corrections, and a few other items. So here is the list of changes, also provided as an attachment to the staff report, and I'll go over them briefly. Number one, make it clear that adoption and incorporation of a new consensus forecast will trigger a regional plan update. Number two, consistent with Tier 3, the changes clarify that a reconfiguration of land use is acceptable and may be allowed. However, a request must be supported by a justification for usage and discussion of how the request will not compromise the desired regional form. Number three, a clarification that the RTP's conformance will include the entirety of the regional plan. Number four, no more bad feelings. Number five, a clarification for the initial review memo policy. Number six, corrected tier boundaries. And number seven, corrected utility corridors and sites based off of previously approved data. That includes data that was omitted from the regional plan in error. The older data, the 2010 case numbers, was in a separate GIS data location and was not captured when compiling the data for the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. And on to the review criteria. This is policy RC10, similar to what Ms. Souza presented on her item, and it provides a 7 criteria, or the same thing as she presented. It's the 7 criteria that the RPC and RPGB must consider when evaluating a regional plan amendment. For the subject amendment, as detailed on the previous slides, they are not anticipated to impact any of the criteria listed in this policy. And as noted, the RPC and staff found that the amendment conforms with the regional plan. And on to the proposed motion. So in conclusion, the previous slides presented a summary of the proposed amendment and the staff's analysis. The proposed motion is listed on this slide or on page 54 of the meeting packet. This does conclude my presentation, but will be available for any questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tolley. Questions for staff? Okay, all right. If there are no questions, do we have any public comment on this item, Mr. Clerk?
We have not received any virtual or in person.
Okay, I will close public comment. I will bring it back to the board. Since there are no questions for staff, I'm looking for a motion. Ms. Breckus.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so I have a motion by Ms. Breckus, second by Ms. Weber. Is there any other discussion? And is there any comment for the members on phone?
No comment.
Okay, thank you so much.
No comment.
Thank you. We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much, Mr. Tully. That takes us to item 6E, informal presentation and discussion. Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeremy Smith, the record. Item 6E is informational presentation, discussion, and possible direction to staff regarding fiscal year 2022-23 budget. Chris, if you could please pull that up for me, I'd sure appreciate it. I have a short presentation. There it is. Okay, well, again, keeping with the request from this body to begin the discussion around budget in the October timeframe, I'm bringing this review of what we know about the status of our budget as of right now today. First off, just want to remind us that our principal funding comes from the 3 jurisdictions as outlined in state law. It is reflective of representation on the governing board, and so you can see there's a slightly higher dollar amount coming from the city of Reno. These values were set in fiscal year 1920 and maintained for fiscal year 2021 as agreed with the city and county managers. In addition to these funds, we also receive ancillary funding in terms of a shared work program with the Regional Transportation Commission. We also do work that we've at this point been charging hourly for the Western Regional Water Commission. We're in process in codifying a shared services agreement that may go upwards of $40,000 depending on need. So it really comes down to what they need help with. And then we have other miscellaneous funds that we receive, for example, the Nevada Department of Environmental Protection. We get some other funds from the Western Regional Water Commission in terms of minute taking, so that tends to vary as it goes. But our principal funding is as outlined there from the 3 jurisdictions. There's quite a bit on this slide. You don't have to really be able to read the numbers, although it is in your packet as well. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that we got the audited numbers in terms of the 2019 to 2020 fiscal year earlier this year, brought that to the last meeting on consent. And so that allowed us to have the correct starting point to evaluate the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 and see how our actual spending compared to our budget. And I'm happy to say that we came in with about 3% more than we predicted in terms of revenues, and that was largely due to the COVID CARES Act and passing that money through to help fund the improvements to the COVID risk meter. I think about 10,000 of those dollars ended up becoming part of the TMRPA budget itself, not passed through. Also, on the flip side, expenditures were below what we predicted. And so that was great. We're saving on payroll because in that year especially, it was incredibly difficult to onboard anyone. So we didn't hire interns or an office admin helper or GIS tech or anything to that degree. But further, we weren't in the office all that much. And so we saved quite a bit on office supplies. And that's reflected in, I think, a 67% use of the services and supply budgets. We're starting in this current fiscal year to get at the professional services budget item that's very large compared to the others. It reflects the persistence of roughly $130,000 in regional plan implementation funds that we have, kept safe and are now utilizing specifically for 3 initiatives: the annual report, the natural resource plan, and the public infrastructure investment plan. So overall, we've got a little bit more money than we thought we would, and we've saved quite a bit of money. In terms of the change to the fund balance, in addition to what we were already carrying as a fund balance and that $130,000 for RPU funds, we gained about $88,000. So that's the real fund balance we have to work with. I just went through all of this information. I think one other thing to point out in terms of payroll savings is that there was little or no increase to our health insurance premiums. We always build in some wiggle room for health insurance because we just don't know what's coming down the pike on that, and it's likely, I think, that we'll see an increase following the COVID pandemic. In terms of the current year, we have only 3 months. We're still saving in services and supplies. We're still below budget on payroll. We are looking to hire a GIS technician. We have begun spending monies. We've been invoiced by our consultant Cardno for the natural resource plan, so we are beginning to utilize those funds for implementation and leading into that next 2024 regional plan update. I'm planning to really look at a long-term 5-year forecast of what we can expect in terms of payroll, promotions, costs, inflation, all of that, looking at our budget to bring back in December. So we have a very firm footing. We'll have 2 more months of this year to look to understand how we're doing and get all that discussed in advance of ultimately bringing back a budget in February for adoption. So at this time, I don't think we need to update the jurisdictional allocations. I'm not positive, but it looks pretty good. I think eventually we're going to have to, because we're going to have to keep up with cost of living adjustments, inflation, and the like. But we have some savings, and I think that it's good that if we can remain status quo and still meet these other assumptions I have, which include merit-based increases for staff, continuing to use those RPU monies, promotions for folks that are deserving, right? Moving from regional planner 1 to 2, there's one in the room right now today. And just generally getting a GIS technician, that's an area that we really want to make sure we can have happen, because we want to have that GIS help available to serve RTC and the WRWC and all the great modeling work we do. So those are the assumptions now, but I will have more details in December. That's basically the next steps. So I'm going to take a close look at what we've done this year. We'll be projecting out 5 years. I will have discussions before December's meeting with the city and county managers to make sure they're on board with what we're suggesting, and then bring that for discussion here, ultimately bringing back the final budget for adoption in February in advance of local jurisdiction processes. So with that, I'm happy to try to answer any questions, and there is a motion to accept the report, or if you want to give any direction for me to move forward. Thank you.
Okay. All right, well done. Questions? Hold on just a second, Ms. Breckus. Mr. Lawson, you're first.
Jeremy, you're expecting the contributions by each of the entities to stay the same as what you said?
That's correct. At this time, I believe that we could have 1 more year with them at the same level.
And then you'll have that finalized by what date?
I'll have that finalized by our December 9th meeting, that understanding and discussions with the managers on that topic.
Perfect. You're doing exactly what we wanted.
Good.
Getting out in front of our budgeting process. Thank you.
Exactly. Ms. Breckus.
Yeah, you know, it's been a while since I've thought about your office situation, and maybe in December you could just remind us what your office situation is, what your lease is. Have you examined your space needs? Because, you know, a lot of places are examining their space needs. And sometimes space needs, my understanding is, are being merged with ability to help people work from home, you know, to some degree, and so they move over to IT. I don't know, I would like an update on that. Maybe you could help us. And then the other one is, on the professional services, I think I missed the meeting where you issued the contract to Cardno, but they were an interesting choice to me from my knowledge of them. And I'll be interested to see maybe a little more detail in December about how that product is coming from them. And in that professional services budget, are you needing a little, you know, are you thinking of complementing their services with someone else? Because I didn't see a whole lot of policy help, maybe even if it's, you know, on one end, it's someone to help you, you know, think about the product they're bringing to integrate into the policy basis of the plan. And on the other hand, sometimes you just need a ghostwriter, right? You know, technical plan writer. So I'll be looking for you to maybe expand upon the professional services budget that we could see finishing out the FY and then moving into next FY's work program too.
You got it, no problem.
Other questions for staff? Okay, the only thing I would caution us to is I'll just say I don't mind looking at what our budget is for office space. That said, the pandemic is not going to last forever. I do like the option for people to be able to work from home, but I also know that an office is a necessary thing, and I don't want to necessarily cut back if we did need additional space, then it would become a problem. So I want to think about that very carefully. It's just a base comment. Any other questions or comments from Mr. Reeves?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll direct my comments to you. So the budget is what it is. I appreciate the sort of flat approach to it. However, we have another agenda item that's after this one that certainly impacts a budgetary concern. So I want to make certain that how we might act on that item is contemplated to some extent in this. And I suppose ultimately that is through the, we'll call it the carry forward. There's I can't see the budget now.
Funding.
Fund balance.
Fund balance.
Yeah, I want to see it if we're able to. So there's an ending fund balance, which you've been able to give us, Dr. Smith.
Yeah, 100,000, 99,500.
So that is then, Mr. Chair, where we would be seeking to do any of the either performance-based incentives, the advancements in grade from 1 to 2 as planners go, and potentially a raise for Dr. Smith. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Either Mr. Tully or Mr. Smith, who wants to?
Yeah, I'm happy to weigh in on that. So if we look at the very bottom set of figures in that blue hexagon shape, you can see that our estimated ending fund balance as of July 1st of last year was pretty darn high. And you got to take the $130,000 out of that is directed to the RPU implementation projects, leaving on the order of $88,000 of fund balance. And we're continuing to build that this fiscal year thus far. So it's not massive, but there is a chunk of money in there to support the things you're talking about in terms of staff promotions and the
Okay,
like.
thank you. That answers my question.
Okay, good. Any other questions for staff? Okay, so I'm not sure what you guys are looking for, just it's informational presentation. Since we have not really given any direction to staff at this time, do we
How about we
need?
move to accept the report?
We can do that. Okay, hold on. Do we have a motion and a second? Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not have any virtual or in person.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Lawson, second by Mr. Reese, I believe. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. That takes us to item 6F, my bad, on page 75. Discussion and possible action regarding contract and compensation of Jeremy M. Smith, Director of Regional Planning. Dr. Smith, and I think, what are we paying you now, $50 down and $50 a week for 50 years? Is that what the number is?
I think so.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, just want to get that on the record. $51 a week for 50 years. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For this item, we have a short report from Legal Counsel Jessica Prunty.
Ms. Prunty, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Jessica Prunty for the record. I prepared a very short memo per the board's request at our last meeting that contains an updated salary survey from the salary survey that was done in 2020, and then I cast the net a little bit wider and pulled some additional information from Transparent Nevada, just for your guys' information. Our recommendation in comporting with past practice of the last 2 contract negotiations were handled by the chair. This body took action and delegated authority to the chair to negotiate the terms and conditions of the interim director contract and Director Smith's first contract from 2020, and that seems to be an efficient way to proceed. Dr. Smith's contract runs until the end of November, so you can take action today to grant authority for the chair to negotiate the terms and conditions of the contract. If you want to set parameters as far as salary increases, you may, and then it can come back to this board for final ratification in December.
And I believe that's exactly what we did when Ms. Dewar did it. Ms. Dewar, so I will start the conversation with saying, Director Smith, I mean, I wouldn't do your job for what you're being paid. That's just my opinion. I think you do a phenomenal job. You bring so many skill sets to the table. I'm constantly astounded by your breadth of knowledge. You're truly amazing fellow. Board, what's the desire here? What would you guys like to do? Ms. Dewar, the floor is yours.
I had a chance to review the salary survey information, and we worked really hard to bring Jeremy into what is considered, we looked at the past directors, what current directors were making, But the world has changed significantly, even in the last 1 year, in my opinion, when you look at the numbers. And right now, Dr. Smith is at least really 30 to 40% below other comparable directors. I mean, it's significantly different. And, you know, if you want me to throw out a number or something, I don't know what you're looking for, but I have something in mind, if that would help get the conversation going.
Pitch a number into the.
Okay. Well, the number that came to me was in the order of 168,000. And it's in percentages, I mean, it's below our local Truckee River flood director. It's about the same as the COO, not the CEO of TRPA. They have similar sized staffs, for example, with the flood project. I think he's been there maybe a year or two longer as the director. We look at the, another comp that I looked at, you know, locally was, you know, even the Reno Housing Authority, the RTC, certainly we're not suggesting going up that high. But anyway, I think something in that order, in the 160s, makes a lot of sense to me. So.
Yeah, and you know, as I gave it some thought, I was kind of in the same area between, you know, high 150s to, you know, even as much as low 170s. So I'm in that same category as you. Again, based exactly on what you noted, with the Reno Housing Authority being at 155 and the Truckee River Flood Management Authority, 178, you know, Tahoe Regional Planning Agency.
Yeah.
Or Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, excuse me, 163. So I mean,
You know.
I sort of felt the same.
And then the final thing I'll say is then you have to factor in the high quality of work that we are receiving and the small staff that we have, and they are a team, totally understand that. And we tried to compensate Dr. Smith previously, and he gave away the money. And, but now that he's done that, we're talking about a salary, not a bonus. And he doesn't have the ability to give away the money. And I just think that we need to make it commensurate with the times, place, and activities that are happening, so.
Okay, let me ask a budgetary question here to legal. I'll throw an even number. We're just not truly even, but 160. Let's just say we come back with 165. Then would that number be factored in, and staff tell me, would that number then be factored into how it affects our fund balance and then how we move forward?
Yes, it would be, and then subject to your final approval of the budget when it comes back.
Okay, all right. And so if I remember correctly, Ms. Stewart worked with you guys, and then you and I had discussions.
Exactly.
As the chair and the vice chair had discussions about just kind of some mid numbers and what it would look like, and then once we establish that, you'll write the staff will write the staff report essentially. You'll write the staff report, Ms. Prenti, and then bring it back to us for ratification from this board.
Yes, I'll make changes to the existing contract per the consensus between you and Dr. Smith, and then it will come back to this board in December for final ratification.
Okay. And will the board have the ability to manipulate that number if they so desire? Let's just say I decide, you know.
The 165 you just said.
165, and the board says, no, you know, we think it should be, you know, 168, or, you know, I say it's 150, and the board says, no, it should be 165. So will the board have the ability to manipulate that number once we bring it
Absolutely, that's why it's going to come back for ratification or modification.
Okay. Do we have the ability to modify things like his travel and because he gets a car allowance as well?
Any of the terms and conditions in his contract are subject to negotiation and modification.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Reeves.
Thank you, and I'll be brief. I took it a little differently, but I think it arrives at the same conclusion, which is obviously Dr. Smith is underpaid. I think, you know, I've said before in the performance evaluation period that I think Dr. Smith has done an incredible job. And so these numbers are very telling and quite frankly, very thorough, because sometimes it's hard to gather the type of data that you're looking for, especially when it's not just the base pay, but it's also the benefits, which sometimes are not as transparently offered as, just getting on the Transparent Nevada website. For my part, I think I looked at it as total compensation package, not the salary component as the base alone. And I just don't want it to skew out of Dr. Smith's favor. And so my hope is that we would target the total compensation package at around the 240 number, which again, I think arrives at the same conclusion as my colleague, Councilmember Dewar. Perhaps I've been a little bit more generous, only so to give you, Mr. Chair, the flexibility that you may need in those negotiations. So for me, again, I based it on the average of these salary surveys. The first grouping that we received in the package are the ones which Dr. Smith thought were most similar in mission, and then the second agency groupings were sort of a broader collection of folks. But the difference between those two on an average total compensation is only about $1,000. So ultimately, I think we should head towards the 240 number. And I'll leave it to you how that is sussed out, whether that's travel allowance or car allowance or all that sort of thing has different tax implications. So I would leave it to you and your discretion to figure out how that is arrived at.
Exactly, and well said. That's why you're a lawyer and I'm not. And his current total compensation package, as you can see on page, on Ms. Prenti's memorandum, is nearly 205,000.
Yep.
204,712.80. So, and I think you're about right. Somewhere is a total compensation package in the 240-ish range. So I totally concur with that. Any other comments from the board? What is it that you need? Do we just do,
We need a motion delegating authority to you, Mr. Chair,
Okay.
to negotiate.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Reese, second by Ms. Stewart. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We've received no virtual public comment or in person.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm sorry, did I have an opposition?
Two. Thanks.
Okay, my apologies. Okay, motion carries unanimously. That takes us to item 7, reports. Washington County School District Board of Trustees member, Ms. Beth Smith. Welcome.
We'll try that again.
There.
The lack of a light is throwing me off. So thank you all so much for having me. Beth Smith. I am very pleased and honored to recently have been appointed to the District D seat for the Washoe County School Board. Very happy to continue the work originally started by Kurt Thigpen. I'm also on the board and then also within this body. Before I continue, I certainly want to say thank you to Dr. Smith, who we are not related, maybe by marriage, cousins, and the whole team. They were fantastic. We had a fantastic meeting, talked with everyone. They sent me quite a few materials so that I could read up on it. The welcome was warm and very appreciated. I actually really enjoy zoning and planning, and that's really ultimately how my path brought me to the Board of Trustees. From 2017 to 2021, I was actually the chair of the Washoe County School District Zoning Advisory Committee, which was formed after WC1 passed and we began to build new schools and needed to reconsider those boundaries. So many of the plans that this board continues and builds are actually built into a lot of that thoughtful processing around school boundaries. So again, recently I was appointed to the board, and as this body might be interested in, we did have an important and exciting work session on September 30th, where we focused exclusively on capital projects. During that meeting, we took the exciting first action of a new elementary school in the South Meadows area, which is off of Rio Wrangler. So the way that this board follows that process with building a new school, it began with a first adoption on September 30th, and then it moved to our capital funding committee. And I'd like to give special thanks to Councilmember Reese and also Commissioner Herman, who sit on that for the Washoe County School District, and then also approved that elementary school. And then very recently, at our most recent board meeting, we also approved that the second time per our process to actually begin the actual scoping process for that. So that is official. In the time between being named on this body and then also those votes, I was well educated by our Chief Facilities Officer, Adam Searcy, about the importance of arterial zoning, planning for schools off of main arterials. And the group will be happy to hear that the district staff has taken many measures around pedestrian traffic, bike traffic, turn pockets, which I now know what those are, among other things. And so great care is being given so that everything aligns with that regional master plan. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Any questions for our new member? Okay, thank you. Okay, that takes us now to item 7B, members and directors' reports. Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a short report. Jeremy Smith for the record. I wanted to start by saying that we have begun efforts towards the natural resource plan. I would encourage you all to go to our website that we've propped up as a main portal for that effort, which is tmrpa.org/NRPlan. And you can go there and sort of see how we're approaching it. A couple of things are happening right now, and after this meeting, we were just about ready to finalize a letter and email that we plan to send out to on the order of about 50 stakeholders in the region that we believe have an interest in this or have data that they could provide to the effort. So that's going out, and that's what we've been working with Cardno to draft. That's just a first step. We've really been looking to have a stakeholder and public engagement event. But as you know, if you watch the COVID risk meter, it's been kind of dicey lately. And so it just didn't seem appropriate, but it's starting to come down. And so I'm hopeful that we can get something organized in the fall here to kick it off in person and have some events. Also, next week, we're going to be participating, Chris, Shawnee, and I will be participating on a panel talking about the Natural Resource Plan effort at the Nevada APA Conference. And so you could check that out, and if there's a copy of that, we'll make sure you get a link. So there is stuff happening, and hopefully by December, possibly we could have an item to actually go into a little more detail, as suggested, to outline exactly what's happened. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of presenting in a seminar series at UC Davis that actually happened. We talked about that. It was in regards to the COVID risk meter. Talked to folks over there at the UC Davis Policy Center for Health Research, and it was a wide-ranging audience from students all the way up to faculty. I got really good feedback from folks during the meeting and also from the deputy director, Dr. Hoch, who said, you know, he did a good job, thank you. And I think that it was recorded, so I'll try to dig up if there's a link to that in case you would like to see it. I could forward that on. Finally, the subcommittee will make sure that we get a meeting scheduled, hopefully in early November, so we can get that happening and not wait around for that. So I'll reach out to the members to make that go down. And our next meeting is going to be on December 9th in these chambers, our next meeting of the Regional Planning Governing Board. So I wanted to just say happy Halloween and happy Thanksgiving if I don't see you between now and then. And the very last announcement is that you notice maybe that policy analyst Nate Kusha is not here in the room. He is absent because he is a new father. And so he has his son named Jude is coming to the world back in September. So we're congratulating Nate, and he'll be back in action pretty soon. Thank you.
Well, congratulations on that, Nate. That's
And, Mr. Chair, I read the letter. The group at UC Davis didn't say good job to Jeremy. I'm sorry, Jeremy, you did not accurately report that. They said fantastic job. They were extremely complimentary. They loved not only the concept, but the presentation itself, Dr. Smith's delivery of the materials. So I think that you've kind of understated that a bit to the point that I had to correct the record, so.
okay, thank you for that. Any questions for Dr. Smith at this time? Yes, Ms. Parkes.
I would just really encourage you to run a social media campaign for that outreach. I think that what I'm seeing is social media, TikTok, Instagram is really engaging folks who just are not opening mail or don't even know how to put stamps on letters because they don't communicate that way. And then are we also in member comments also, Mr.? Is that?
Well, I suppose so, right. I thought board comments and requests.
Yeah. That map, I went back into the Reno Planning Commission report, and that map that had a June 21st date was a different base map than what you showed. I sent that to you, but if you could send back the other one, because I noticed it on something else, and if Reno's using, it's really important to have the existing land use when you're doing development requests, and if Reno's doing an outdated base map, that's of concern, and I'll follow up at our side, but also, if you go to the base map committee, and have any information you can bring back to us about, the fly and what, where we're at on that. Are they fly? I would really like to know, because so much has been built, and you almost, are we on a 1-year fly, or are we on an 18-month fly?
You got it.
Okay, all right, any other comments at this time? Okay, I'm going to close that and take us to item 7C, legal counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Norm Azevedo, and I have an announcement for the board today. Possibly my last time for the record. Effective 12/31, I'll be retiring.
Wow.
I'm stepping down as your counsel. I will be going inactive with the state bar. I will have an of-counsel relationship with Jessica Prunty. And so I couldn't make the 30-day deadline in our contract to notify you on December 9th, so I had to do it today. And, it's been a great run. I've been your counsel for over 20 years, and as a lawyer, you learn some things as you progress in your career. I gotta take this off, it's tough to speak. And I've learned two things, the more I learned, the more I know I didn't know. And secondarily, the complexity of the English language have one real downside, that words that are used often somewhat lose their meaning. And to this board, and to the 30-some board members I represented before this board, I'd just like to say thank you. I had a ringside seat to watch this group guide the development of this region in a time that was really extraordinary. And to be able to assist you to make the changes that you did in the region was a great honor. And it's been a lot of fun. Turning 60 next month, which is not so much fun. And so I've decided to step down. There were many people along the way who helped me in this process. One in particular is my wife in the audience. She was my office manager. And in addition to doing your work, we did a lot of tax work and a lot of other work. And she was always there making sure I was appropriately dressed and going to the right meeting with the right documents. And, she really did a good job most days. As today I'm wearing jeans, she didn't have me weigh in on this. But be that as it may, it's been great. In addition, we have sold our ranch in Washoe Valley. It closed day before yesterday, and we'll be relocating to Montana. We have a 4-month rent back, and I'll miss you all.
Wow.
So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Esposito.
Pardon me?
They're from Nevada,
Oh, you know what, and I will say this.
California.
Well, precisely, I am a Nevadan, I will always be a Nevadan. It's just Montana has a close connection to the family. My folks are laid to rest up there, and my wife being a Texan, in retirement, we're going to spend the nicer months in Montana and then winter in the Gulf Coast around Texas, her house, where family is and all that, and so we'll be splitting it. If the board has anything pop up that my memory may recall, Jessica's will have a direct line to me, and so the only difference for you is you won't see me anymore. So thank you again. It's been great.
Well, let me start by saying, Miss Azevedo, Rhonda, thank you so much for making sure that he was here and on time and appropriately dressed. Thank you. Your words, not mine.
It's all true.
Norm, that's,
All true.
I personally want to thank you. You've been a great colleague and a dear friend for quite a number of years, and I appreciate getting a little choked up here. I appreciate the wise counsel. You've in my opinion, always given us a fair and balanced opinion based on information, statute, and past practice. And so I genuinely appreciate your service, not just to this board, but to citizens of Washoe County. So thank you so much. Again, now, so this actually takes the onus off of you, Ms. Breckus. You are now buying cocktails, and so.
Well, I'm Miss Dewar, but yes, I will
Ms.
still,
Stewart, forgive me.
I will-
Ms. Stewart.
I will still honor my commitment.
Yes.
We'll have to.
Might be more than
Well,
one round.
as the old lawyer's joke go, you could never pass a bar? Or could you pass a bar? Okay, any comments? So I saw Ms. Breckus first, and forgive me, Ms. Stewart.
So I started working with land use attorneys in about 1993, and then started working with the land use attorneys here in 1998, and staff, and then 2012 coming on as elected. And I've worked with a lot of land use attorneys now, and some stand out, and Mr. Acevedo is really pinnacle, and it's the demeanor, it's the love of the law to look at things full scope. It's just always been a pleasure. I'll miss you. But Ms. Prunty, who I reached out to many years ago to come speak at a conference, the APA one, because I read something she read, it's been so nice to see someone mentor someone, and so I'm so excited. And I just wish you all the best up in Montana. So it's been a pleasure.
Okay. Ms. Weber.
I'd like to say, the years that I've known and worked when I first got on the county commission in 2003, I worked with him for the 12 years there, and to be able to come back and work, and I'm just so excited for you to have it, move on and do some wonderful things while you're young. You're still young. So anyway, just appreciate all that you've done, and I'm excited that you'll still be in contact with Ms. Prunty and us if we need you. So that's the best part. But best wishes to you both, and it's just been a great time working with you.
Thank you. Mr. Lawson.
So you've been the only lawyer on this board for me in 11 years, until Jessica came on, obviously. But I plan on being in Montana on my motorcycle. Hope you got some room in the barn for me to sleep or something.
I will send the contact information to Dr. Smith, and all of you are invited. We have to build a house, so give it a year, okay? The living's pretty skinny right out of the chute.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to say something.
Yes, Ms. Stewart.
I incredibly appreciated both of your service, but Norm, your history and knowledge of the law, I think Ms. Breckus mentioned it too, just sort of your gravitas, I guess I'll put it, your knowledge base and your ability to share that knowledge, I really think is right up there with the best. And I too have worked with many, many, many over about almost a 40-year period. I'm older than you. And, you stand right up there with the best. So thank you so much for what you've done. I can't wait to come to visit you in Montana. I think it will take longer than 1 year, frankly, given shortage of materials and what I've seen. But so I'm sure you've got the mobile home or something ready to roll. And come back and visit us too.
Okay. Anyone else?
If I may say,
Hello, this
Ms.
is Jean.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell Mr. Azevedo that he will be greatly missed, and we just loved having him for our attorney. So thank you very much.
thank you very much. I'll miss representing you all.
Okay. And I will just leave you with this. In the words of the great philosopher Frank Zappa,
Yes.
leaving for Montana soon, gonna become a dental floss tycoon.
Dental floss.
You have to be a Zappa fan. Zappa fan. There are others. There's some words of wisdom in Zappa's songs. I'll just leave it at that. Again, Mr. Azevedo, thank you so much. You'll be greatly missed. So will this literally be your last meeting, or will you be at our December 9th meeting as well?
I will be present at your December 9th meeting. I may sit in the audience and
Okay,
have a different role.
very good. All right. Thank you. Ms. Prunty, do you have anything else for us?
No, I do not. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We will close item number 7, and that takes us to item 8, board comments and requests for future agenda items. Anything from any of the members? Anyone on the phone? Okay, hearing none, I will close item number 8. That takes us to item number 9, public comment. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment at this time?
We have none.
I will close item number 9. That takes us to item number 10. Do we have any written correspondence, Dr. Smith?
There is none.
Okay, I will close item number 10. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We are adjourned.